While many countries boast about their formidable military might, not every nation has the luxury of a powerful defense force. Some nations either can't afford a robust military or choose to forego one altogether. So, which countries have the weakest armies in the world? Let's dive in and uncover the nations with the smallest and least equipped military forces. Despite being a member of NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, Iceland does not maintain its own military forces. The country lacks an army, navy, and air force. Instead, Iceland relies on the defense provided by NATO allies. NATO countries periodically deploy troops to Iceland, but these deployments are temporary and rotate regularly. This unique arrangement is why Iceland tops the list of nations with the weakest military capabilities. The Vatican City holds the number 2 spot on our list for some compelling reasons. Firstly, it is completely landlocked, entirely surrounded by Italy, a NATO member with significant military strength. In the unlikely event of a conflict, Italy's formidable defense capabilities could easily overshadow the Vatican's minimal military resources. Secondly, the Vatican City is the smallest country in the world, both in terms of land area and population. Its military presence is virtually non-existent, lacking both an air force and a navy. In fact, its security forces are minimal, whose primary role is ceremonial rather than defensive. Given its size and situation, the Vatican's reliance on Italy for protection underscores why it ranks so high on the list of nations with the weakest military capabilities. Monaco, while the second smallest country in the world after Vatican City and just ahead of Tuvalu, does maintain a military force. However, Monaco's so-called military is not primarily focused on national defense. Instead, it serves more specialized roles such as protecting the prince and handling firefighting duties. The Monaco military force, which carries out these functions, is equipped with standard-issue firearms like the M16, a model famously used by the U.S. military during the Iraq War. Additionally, Monaco benefits from the security umbrella of France. Although France provides substantial support, the specifics of how and when this support would be activated in a conflict remain somewhat uncertain. This combination of limited self-defense capabilities and reliance on France contributes to Monaco's position on the list of nations with the weakest military forces. Tuvalu, despite being an island nation, does not have a robust navy. In fact, Tuvalu has no regular military forces at all and allocates no budget for defense. As the fourth smallest country in the world, Tuvalu's limited resources are directed towards other priorities rather than maintaining a military. This lack of military infrastructure is partly due to Tuvalu's isolation and low risk of external threats, which diminishes the perceived need for a standing army or navy. Furthermore, Tuvalu relies on regional and international partnerships for security, reinforcing its position on our list of nations with the weakest military capabilities. San Marino, a small yet historically significant country. Despite its rich history, San Marino has a minimal military presence. San Marino, one of the world's smallest and oldest republics, has no standing army. Instead, it relies on a small ceremonial force known as the Guards of the Rock, which primarily serves ceremonial purposes rather than national defense. This force is more about tradition and public representation than actual military capability. The country's defense strategy is based on its long-standing neutrality and its reliance on Italy for protection. San Marino benefits from Italy's security umbrella, which provides a layer of protection without the need for its own military forces. Given its size, lack of significant military resources, and reliance on neighboring Italy, San Marino naturally ranks high on the list of nations with the weakest military capabilities. Ranking number 6 on our list is Andorra, a small but picturesque country nestled between France and Spain in the Pyrenees Mountains. Despite its charming landscape, Andorra has minimal military capabilities. Andorra does not maintain a standing army. Instead, it relies on a small force of volunteer police officers known as the Andorran Police for its internal security. This force handles domestic issues and public safety rather than national defense. The country's defense strategy is based on its neutrality and strategic alliances with its neighboring nations. Andorra benefits from the protection provided by France and Spain, which cover its security needs without Andorra needing to invest in a substantial military force of its own. This reliance on its neighbors for defense, combined with its lack of a formal military structure, places it among the nations with the weakest military capabilities. At number 7 on our list is Liechtenstein, a small and affluent country located between Switzerland and Austria. Despite its economic prosperity, Liechtenstein maintains minimal military capabilities. Liechtenstein does not have a standing army. Instead, the country relies on a police force for internal security and public order. This force, while professional, is not equipped or trained for military defense. Liechtenstein's security is managed through a strategy of neutrality and diplomacy. The country benefits from its strong relationship with neighboring Switzerland, which provides a layer of protection through bilateral agreements and regional stability. Liechtenstein's lack of a formal military is a reflection of its focus on maintaining neutrality and its reliance on its neighbors for defense. This combination of limited military resources and strategic reliance on its allies positions Liechtenstein among the nations with the weakest military capabilities. The Indian Ocean island nation of Mauritius, renowned for its stunning landscapes, is also notable for its minimal military presence. Despite having one of the strongest economies in the sub-Saharan Africa region and a population of about 1.2 million, Mauritius does not maintain a traditional military force. The country's strategic position and lack of neighboring threats have led it to prioritize other areas over building a substantial military. Instead, Mauritius has focused on developing its Mauritius police force, comprising around 12,500 officers. This force is responsible for a broad range of duties, including Coast Guard patrols, riot control, and general law enforcement. Mauritius allocates a modest defense budget of just $22 million, which represents a mere 0.15% of its overall GDP. The nation's defense infrastructure includes a small number of military units, approximately 1,400 personnel. Their equipment is relatively limited, with only 6 police transport helicopters and 3 maritime patrol aircraft. The Mauritius Coast Guard, which functions as the closest equivalent to a navy, operates 15 patrol and strike boats, some of which were donated by the United States. Additionally, Mauritius reportedly possesses 4 rocket launchers and 2 mortars. While these assets provide a degree of defense capability, they fall short compared to the military forces of larger nations. Overall, while Mauritius is more powerful in its regional context compared to other nations we've discussed, its military capabilities remain limited and focused on internal security and coastal protection. Suriname, having experienced 2 coups and a civil war that severely impacted its military capabilities, faces significant challenges in maintaining a functional armed force. With a population of around 600,000, Suriname's military is notably under-equipped and underfunded. The Surinamese armed forces consist of only 1,850 active personnel. However, the lack of modern equipment and the obsolescence of existing resources limit their effectiveness. The Suriname Air Force operates just 3 service helicopters, which are insufficient for comprehensive air support. The country's Navy and Coast Guard have struggled with outdated assets. For decades, they relied on 3 patrol boats acquired in the 1970s, but by the early 2010s, these vessels had become so obsolete that they were no longer in service. It wasn't until 2012 that 3 new patrol boats were purchased, but the fleet remains limited in capability. Economic challenges exacerbated by the coups and civil war have further strained Suriname's defense budget, which stands at only $63 million. This budget constraints reflect the nation's broader economic difficulties and its reliance on military donations from other countries to supplement its defense capabilities. Given these issues, it is clear why Suriname's military forces are among the weakest in the region. Sierra Leone, still grappling with the aftermath of a brutal civil war that claimed 70,000 lives between 1991 and 2002 and displaced 2.6 million people, faces significant challenges in rebuilding its military capabilities. The war left deep scars on the nation, exacerbated by corruption, a weak legal system, and low levels of youth education. Today, Sierra Leone's armed forces comprise approximately 9,000 soldiers, a relatively modest number for a nation of 8.8 million people. The military's operational effectiveness is hampered by systemic corruption that has historically undermined its resources and infrastructure. A notable example of this corruption was seen in 2007, when the Ministry of Defense could only access about 20% of its allocated funds, with the remainder disappearing into the pockets of corrupt officials. The state of Sierra Leone's military equipment is a stark reflection of these issues. The Air Force, which reportedly has around 100 pilots, is constrained by a meager fleet of just 6 helicopters. Among these, 5 are transport helicopters, including the Mi-17 HIP and the BO-105, while the sole attack helicopter, a Mi-24 Hind, is tasked with the limited role of defending the nation's airspace. The situation is even more dire for the Navy. With roughly 140 personnel, the Navy operates only 3 strike boats, a Shanghai Class 3, an LCU, and a Swiftship boat. These are supplemented by a few inshore harbor cutters and patrol craft. Despite being a coastal nation with access to the Atlantic Ocean, Sierra Leone's naval capabilities are severely limited, leaving it with minimal maritime defense. Overall, Sierra Leone's military faces considerable obstacles, from inadequate funding and outdated equipment to pervasive corruption and logistical challenges, reflecting the broader difficulties the country faces in securing its future. Thank you so much for joining us on this dive into the world's weakest armies. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, don't forget to hit that like button, drop a comment saying part 2, and subscribe to our channel so you never miss out on our latest content. We appreciate your support and hope you found this video insightful. Stay safe out there, and we'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.